Hello and welcome to this presentation where I will break down the exclusive right to sell, listing agreement, and agency disclosure. These forms have been updated multiple times since this new way of doing business was initiated as of mid-August 2024. So I'm going to break down this form, especially the sections that might be a little bit new to many potential home sellers. So again, this document has been approved by the Utah Association of Realtors. This document might look a little bit different depending on whether you're in other states. But overall, the concept is relatively consistent with the guidelines for the new way of doing business since the National Association of Realtors settlement again in August of 2024. So let's start to break this down. So the initial sections of this form, section one is very common. What we have is the actual property. We have the time and date that this exclusive agreement will end. And that is section one. Section two is where we get into many of the changes. So in recent documents and in the forms that we used to have, there was one section for the brokerage fee that was basically combined listing agent and the seller agent or the buyer agent was combined to create one percentage or dollar amount that was to be offered. In this section, it is being broken down. So section 2.1 indicates what you as the seller agree to pay your listing agent. Again, this can be broken down in a percentage or a dollar amount of the gross acquisition price. Again, this is solely going to your seller's agent, also known as the listing agent. Section 2.2. This is the number that a listing agent might charge if there is an unrepresented buyer. Many buyers do decide that they want to avoid paying their own buyer's agent, so they put the onus onto the listing agent, or they frankly just don't come with representation. They don't want representation. However, most agents know that there is a lot of work that comes with representing or not formally representing a buyer who chooses to be unrepresented. And so they might add an additional cost to that for the additional liability and responsibility. And this, again, is in the form of a percentage or a dollar amount of the gross acquisition price, which should be added to the brokerage fee. Now, the third, section 2.3 is the authorization to offer compensation to a buyer's brokerage, so to the buyer's agent. And again, in case you're not familiar, all funds go through the brokerage and then get dispersed to the agent. So this is where you can decide whether you want to pay or contribute to the buyer's agent commission, which can again be paid in the form of a percentage or a dollar amount of the gross acquisition price. If no amount is entered, then the company is not authorized to advertise or otherwise communicate that the seller or the company is offering to pay compensation to a buyer's brokerage. This does not mean that you don't have to, but this does mean that we as the listing agents cannot talk about it. However, unless checked below this section right here, seller does not authorize the company to enter into a written compensation agreement with the buyer's brokerage. Unless checked below, the company may enter into a written compensation agreement to pay. However, it's not to exceed the authorized amount in this section. Okay. So let's just say that you as the seller offer offer to pay 3%. However, in the offer from the buyer's agent per the buyer, they only ask you to pay 2%. You do not have to pay the 3%. You can pay the 2%. The opposite is true if you only offer to pay 3 2%, and in their buyer agent agreement, they only have an agreement, the buyer and their buyer's agent have an agreement that the buyer will pay no more than 1%, then the buyer's agent cannot collect any more than that 1%. It's a little bit confusing, but I'm happy to walk you through it as we go. However, these are kind of the major breakdowns of this new form. Again, seller does not authorize the company to enter into a written agreement with a buyer's brokerage. That is important that you check that if you do not want your listing agent to mention it, to market it, etc. The rest of this form is fairly straightforward. We have what the fee, when is the fee due and payable. We have a protection period. So if there is a buyer who comes forward and maybe the listing agreement has been terminated or expired, but within a certain number of months, that buyer chooses to move forward with purchasing the property, and if they do so within that time period, you as the seller have to pay that commission. Again, the rest is fairly straightforward, but the most challenging part of it is generally that new breakdown of what you as the seller agree to pay a buyer's agent and what you agree to pay your listing agent. So I hope that helped. If you have any questions, please let me know.